Welcome to Cinema Bites.
Oh my God, is that man?
Gotcha, sucker!
Your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The movie The Toxic Avengers begins. Late at night, reporter Melvin is visited by Doherty, an employee from the pharmaceutical company BTH. It turns out they have been causing extensive waste contamination, which has triggered mutations in animals and possibly health problems in the local population. Melvin and Doherty plan to expose the company's crimes. At that moment, they see on the security cameras that the building has been surrounded by the Killer Nuts, a violent gang and popular band paid by BTH. Melvin makes Doherty run away before yelling at the Nuts to keep their attention on him. Unfortunately, Doherty finds the stairs blocked by the thugs, so she has to jump over the railing to escape. The memory drive with all the intel she stole from the company breaks as she lands. In the office, the Nuts break in and shoot Melvin several times. He still manages to stand up, so they shoot him again. Melvin keeps moving, so this time they shoot a trident at him, which sends him flying through the window. Outside, Doherty sees Melvin die as he lands, and she runs away. In the morning, Winston wakes up for another day of work. Since his wife died, he has been in charge of taking care of his stepson Wade, but their relationship isn't close. When they leave the house, Winston sees that Spence is harassing his neighbor Daisy because he wants her to sell her property. He keeps making threatening comments until she agrees. Spence promises to come back later with the papers, and before leaving, he throws Daisy's cat into the middle of the street. Winston immediately runs to rescue the cat, almost getting hit by a car in the process. Wade walks away, and Winston follows him to make sure he's fine. The kid snaps at him, complaining because Winston didn't defend Daisy. Winston has to explain that sometimes there's nothing they can do. Afterward, Winston goes to the BTH factory, where he works as a janitor. Alarms are often ringing, and he can hear people screaming, but he stays out of it. After his shift is over, Winston goes to the doctor for his test results. Unfortunately, he's got an aggressive brain tumor, which means he only has 1 year left to live. Surgery is impossible at this stage, and the only medical treatment is incredibly expensive. Winston calls his insurance company and is devastated to learn they won't cover this kind of treatment, even though he has the Platinum Plan. Meanwhile, the owner of BTH, Robert, is furious because the company's stocks are plunging. There's a lot of talk about his illegal deals with gangsters and the dumping of toxic sludge. His brother, Fritz, is the head of security and manages the Killer Nuts. Robert breaks the TV in fury when he hears that they failed to kill Doherty and tells Fritz to fix it immediately. Afterward, Fritz interrupts the band's rehearsal and sends them after Doherty. The thugs go to her house and break everything inside, trying to find her to no avail. Doherty is across the street and waits until they're gone to go home. Her roommate yells at her since the thugs almost attacked him too, but Doherty only has eyes for the fake panel on the floor. Thankfully, her bag is still hidden there, so she takes it and announces she isn't coming back. At school, Wade tries to audition for the upcoming talent show, but he gets too nervous and leaves the stage. The video appears online, and everyone makes fun of him. At home, Winston tries to cheer Wade up by putting on a tutu to dance with him, but the boy isn't amused. Wade notices a medical file on the table, but Winston takes it away before he can read it. Afterward, Winston throws the file in the trash and goes out for a drink. At a special event, Robert is scolded by various business partners, including the mayor. Suddenly, Spence drags Robert to a private table to talk to his father, Thod, powerful mobster. Thod yells at Robert because he lent BTH money, and he hasn't seen payments in a while. Later, Robert receives an award and ignores his problems to brag instead. At that moment, Winston sneaks in and approaches Robert, explaining he's worked for him for 13 years and never caused trouble, so he deserves better insurance. Robert claims to be sympathetic and tells his assistant, Kissy, to take care of it. Kissy takes Winston outside, promising to discuss things, but she locks the door in his face and leaves. Winston can hear her and Robert mocking him. A furious Winston goes to BTH, where Doherty is watching from the shadows. When she sees the door opening for him, she uses the chance to sneak in. She triggers a security breach alert, and Fritz immediately calls the Nuts to take care of it. While Doherty uses some tools to try to get a sample of the harmful waste, Winston dips his mop in radioactive sludge and then uses it to threaten the night guard, forcing him to put all the company money in a bag. On his way out, Winston accidentally bumps into Doherty, and her sample falls on the money bag, which instantly sets it on fire. The Nuts appear behind them, so Doherty picks up Winston's ID and they both start running. The road is blocked by a fence that Doherty easily jumps over, and she tries to help Winston do the same, but he doesn't move quickly enough. Since the Nuts are getting closer, she has no choice but to leave. The thugs surround Winston and shoot him in the face, face. Fritz notices the mistake and screams at them before telling them to clean up. Winston's body and his mop are dropped into a pool of radioactive waste to get rid of the evidence. While Doherty watches from afar, the radioactive waste enters Winston's body and revives him, but also completely mutates him. When he emerges from the pool, he's a deformed green creature and screams in horror. He tries to go home and finds Daisy signing the property papers for Spence. Not wanting to be seen, Winston climbs the fire escape to reach his apartment window. Wade is calling 911 because his stepfather has disappeared. When Wade sees the monster at the window, he panics and throws an object at Winston's face, causing Winston to fall and land on top of Spence's car. Hearing the alarm, Spence checks his car and is horrified to see Winston, so he opens fire. However, Winston's new body simply pushes out the bullet and the wound heals instantly. Furious, Winston grabs Spence's arm and rips it off as people on the street begin recording him on their phones. Winston quickly runs away, and Daisy takes the chance to retrieve her papers from Spence. When the police arrive, the crowd describes Winston in every exaggerated way, calling him a fiend and a demon. The cop fires his gun in the air and announces the start of a mob. The frenzied crowd chases Winston with torches, forcing him to hide in the forest where he passes out. The next morning, Winston wakes up in a camp belonging to a hobo named Guthrie, who isn't afraid of him. Guthrie has the mop and gives it back to Winston, saying it must be used responsibly. Meanwhile, Wade is watching TV and discovers the authorities are searching for the monster he saw. He calls the station to share information. At a fast food joint, a right-wing supremacist group called the Nasty Lads has taken over the building, holding the customers hostage to protest the name change. The restaurant used to be called Mr. Meat, now it's Miss Meat. When a detective tries to reason with the leader, the man opens fire. Winston sneaks back into town and witnesses the chaos. A blind customer insults the Nasty Lads and throws her drink at the leader. When he's about to shoot her, Winston breaks in through the back door and hits the leader with the mop, destroying half his face. He then attacks the rest of the Nasty Lads, killing them one by one and even tearing a man's intestines out through his rear. After a bloody fight, all the hostages are freed. The police prepare to shoot when they see Winston, but the hostages defend him, calling him their hero. A reporter immediately interviews him on camera, and Wade recognizes Winston's voice. Space also sees him on TV and identifies him as the one who hurt him. Thad sends his men after Winston. Now Winston is adored by everyone, and people even take selfies with him. Later, when he stops to relieve himself, he discovers his urine is acidic. The media begins speculating whether BTH caused the man's transformation. They start calling him the Toxic Avenger, or simply Toxic. Robert is furious at Kissy and Fritz for letting Doherty escape, and suspects Winston was working with her. He's also unhappy about the media attention on the new hero, but upon closer inspection, he realizes the mutated creature and the janitor are the same person because they're wearing the same tutu. Realizing his own chemical pool caused this, Robert asks his scientists for an explanation. They tell him the mutation was triggered by mixing their toxic waste with an extremely rare genetic marker. Robert wants them to recreate the mutation, but they need to capture Winston first. Meanwhile, Doherty goes to Winston's apartment, and Wade lets her in after seeing his stepfather's ID. Doherty tells him what happened that night at the factory and shares that her mother died from exposure to toxic waste. Suddenly, the killer nuts burst into the apartment, so Doherty helps Wade escape out the window. A thug manages to shoot Wade just in time to attach a tracker to his leg. On the street, the duo runs into Winston, who finally tells Wade about his cancer. Their conversation is interrupted when Thad's men shoot Winston. Doherty drags Wade away while Winston recovers and kills his attacker with the mop before escaping. In the woods, Wade hears a beeping, and they discover the tracker. The nuts arrive and shoot Doherty before capturing Wade. Meanwhile, Winston hides in an abandoned building and checks his wounds. The bullets are already out, but the holes haven't closed yet. The rest of Thad's men are coming for him, so he hides in a pile of trash bags and ambushes the first thug. He then uses the body as a puppet to lure another thug and kills him too. Finally, he jumps onto the thug's car, rips the driver's head off, and runs over it as he drives away. Afterward, Winston finds Doherty and takes her to the hobo camp. Guthrie mentions he was a doctor before losing everything, but does nothing to help. Winston has no choice but to pour his blood into Doherty's wound to heal her. When she wakes up, she agrees to team up with Winston. In the Nuts van, Fritz tells Wade not to be scared because he only wants Winston. Wade gets angry and says at least Winston loves him, finally calling him dad. He says Fritz doesn't have anyone who loves him that much, which makes Fritz very upset. Meanwhile, an enraged Thad calls Robert to complain about Winston, blaming BTH for his existence. Thad wants to punish Robert, who sees Fritz arrive with Wade and assures Thad he has everything under control. Later, the Killer Nuts are putting on a show. Doherty disconnects the band's microphone to replace it with Winston's, who walks through the crowd while singing the band's most popular song. He makes his way to the stage as the crowd cheers for him. The singer gets angry because the crowd likes Winston more and shoots him, but Winston rips the top of his head off with his mop. The crowd flees in panic while the band chases Winston for revenge. He dodges an attack from a man who falls off the stage and dies instantly. Then Winston throws the mop, which goes through another musician's head and lands on the mixer table, electrocuting and killing the DJ. The guitarist is taken down with a few blows, and Winston rips off his beard and forces him to eat it. The crowd stares in shock, realizing their hero might be a monster after all. So Winston tells them the truth about the band, and BTH, the last band member, tries to escape, so Doherty hits him with a wooden plank. Winston asks him about Wade while removing the guy's mask, only to find a tiny head. At least the squeaky voice tells him where to find his son. Moments later, the duo arrives at Robert's mansion, and Winston pulls out his eye to scout the area. Discovering there are two guards, Doherty tries to flirt with them, and the guards are so nervous around a woman that they accidentally shoot each other. Trapped in the garden shed, Wade sees Winston coming and tries to warn him of the danger, but it's too late. A Robert statue sprays sleeping gas at the duo. When they wake up, they find themselves chained in the lab. The scientists take a sample of Winston's blood and attempt to make a serum for Robert, but it doesn't go well. Robert forces them to repeat the experiment until it succeeds. Winston endures several painful extractions. Eventually, the scientists manage to create a serum that is in the right range of mitoenics, but there's a catch. Robert refuses to listen and takes the bottle away. At that moment, Thad arrives with his men and puts on the news. Winston's outburst at the concert is all over the media, and the mayor announces she will no longer support BTH. Thad is ready to punish Robert for not handling the issue as promised. So, Robert decides to drink the serum. At first, his transformation is not visually extreme, but he's still faster and stronger, managing to kill Thad and his men in just a few seconds in the most savage ways. When Kissy comes looking for him, the transformation is complete, and now he looks more monstrous. Kissy wants to drink the serum too, but there are only a few drops left. Soon, Robert starts feeling sick, and the scientists point out that the serum wasn't ready. Kissy yells at them, demanding a fix. She also orders the guards to kill all their hostages, including Wade. Fritz is horrified to hear this, and when Kissy turns around, he discovers she's been slightly affected by the serum too. He doesn't want to kill an innocent child and tries to block the guards, saying this monster isn't Robert anymore. An enraged Kissy kicks him in the groin and starts beating him with a metal rod. In the cell, Doherty overhears that Wade will be killed and convinces Winston to fight. Unfortunately, he can't break the chains no matter how hard he tries. Then he remembers his acidic pee, so he opens his pants and relieves himself to free them both. While Doherty steals a computer to get the proof she needs, Winston punches the door down and retrieves his mop. Outside, two guards approach the shed. Winston yells to get their attention and throws a rock at a man's face, killing him instantly. The other guard opens fire and a bullet accidentally hits a gas tank, causing a huge explosion that destroys the shed. The shockwave throws Winston back and he screams in despair, thinking Wade is dead. Then, Robert appears with an axe and starts fighting Winston. They exchange blows until their weapons get stuck and the radioactive mop starts cutting through the axe. Robert disarms Winston and tries to decapitate him, but the attack fails due to the toxic damage on the axe. Winston retrieves the mop and burns Robert's face, causing him to flee. A chase ensues and the men roll down the hill. Meanwhile, Doherty returns to the car, but Kissy surprises her from behind and tries to choke her with chains. After a struggle, Kissy drops Doherty, who immediately comes back to fight her properly. Kissy gets distracted when she sees Robert and Winston fighting nearby, so Doherty hits her in the head with a toilet, finally bringing her down. At the same time, Robert knocks down Winston, but when he's about to kill him, Doherty hits him with a toilet too. Refusing to give up, Robert slashes a container of toxic waste. Winston breaks his axe and tackles him, repeatedly punching him in the face. Then, he grabs him by the neck to choke him, but he's interrupted by Wade appearing and calling him dad. It turns out Fritz used a hidden tunnel to save the boy. Robert takes the chance to attack again, so Winston uses his mop to throw him onto the car. His head goes through the hood and Doherty starts the engine to shred him. Afterward, Winston tries to reunite with Wade, only for Kissy to stab him from behind. When Fritz tries to stop her, his throat is slashed as well. Winston tackles Kissy and they fall onto the spilled waste, causing a big explosion that kills her. Sometime later, Winston wakes up in the hospital. The blind woman from the burger joint incident is there, revealing she's a special agent. She turns on the TV and they watch the news, which confirms that Doherty has done a data dump that has exposed the BTH conspiracy. Even the mayor and some police officers are involved. The agent explains she's been after BTH for years, and she's so grateful for Winston's help that he won't be arrested for his crimes. The doctor then informs him that his mutations have cured his cancer. When Winston leaves the hospital, Daisy and a crowd are waiting to thank him for saving the city. Even Wade hugs him for the first time. Doherty says goodbye to him from afar. In another room, Fritz is being guarded by a cop and Kissy wakes up. When it's time for the school talent show, Wade is finally brave enough to perform and Winston proudly supports him from the back. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.